Running a business is the same as getting healthy. It's a lifestyle. Leadership is a lifestyle. An infinite mindset is a lifestyle. You can't get healthy by going to the gym for 9 hours. It doesn't work, right? But if you go every single day for 20 minutes, you'll absolutely get into shape, 100%. So even if I hit my fitness goal, I'm eating better, I'm sleeping better, my relationships are great, I'm going to the gym. Yes, I missed my goal, but I know if I just keep going, I'll hit it. I'm getting healthier and healthier.
And I think our health is awareness. Unfortunately, some people wait for the breakup to learn that they're bad listeners. You learn to focus on one thing, your mantra, a sound, whatever it is. You learn to, your breath, you learn to, you don't think of nothing, you think of one thing. Focus on one thing, right? And if something interrupts that thing, you have a thought.
Business is an infinite game, and almost all of the leadership in business today is finite-minded. And so there's literally, you can't show up to a game of basketball ready to play football. Like, it's not gonna go well. We overuse sports analogies in business, but sports has beginning, middle, and end. There actually is a finish line, right? We overuse the analogies, they're incorrect analogies. You know, running a business is the same as getting healthy. It's a lifestyle. Leadership is a lifestyle. An infinite mindset is a lifestyle, right? So for example, you can't get healthy by going to the gym for 9 hours. It doesn't work, right? But if you go every single day for 20 minutes, you'll absolutely get into shape, 100%. But I don't know when, and it's different times for different people, right? And leading is the same thing. You can absolutely have fitness goals. You can absolutely have finite goals within the infinite context of being healthy. But there's a practice that you have to do. You have to get enough sleep. You have to go to the gym. You have to eat well. You have to protect your relationships, you know, because healthy relationships really matter to our health. And you have to do all those things vigilantly. And if you miss your health goal, it's okay. You keep working at it and you know you will hit it. Business is the same. Who says that you have to meet this goal on this arbitrary date? Now, it helps to drive and it's good to have incentives, and we're very goal-oriented species. That's fine. But if we miss the thing, it's fine. We just keep working towards it. Like, they're guidance. They're not absolutes, because they're arbitrary dates and arbitrary numbers. And even if you do hit your fitness goal, you don't get to stop working out. You have to keep going for the rest of your life, right? And this is what leading with an infinite mindset means. So even if I hit my fitness goal, I'm eating better, I'm sleeping better, my relationships are great, I'm going to the gym. Yes, I missed my goal, but I know if I just keep going, I'll hit it. I'm getting healthier and healthier, right? I just got the timing wrong. And this is what we need to build into business, that infinite mindset. Yes, have the goals. Yes, have the ambitions. Yes, have the annual targets. If we miss them, as long as we're doing the right things, we have the right lifestyle to take us there, that's a much healthier way to live a life and a much healthier way to build an organization.
And the awareness of the skills that I need to be a better brother, son, boyfriend, friend, you know, I had to learn how to hold space for someone and then practice. That's awareness. And I think our health is awareness. Unfortunately, some people wait for the breakup to learn that they're bad listeners. Some people wait for the heart attack to realize they're eating poorly. You know, that's awareness. You get awareness by getting a punch in the face. And I think it's a responsibility for every human being, should they want to have value in the lives of others, to seek awareness in how they show up in the world and how the world impacts them, their mental health, their physical health, their ability to maintain relationships and nurse relationships. And you hear me, you hear me say this over again. It's a sort of it's a repeating pattern, which is for those who want to show up better in the lives of others, which is, I see being healthy as a service to others. I see being a better listener being a service. I see everything in terms of service to others. There are benefits to you as well, of course. But I think we've neglected for decades the socialness of our animal, and social media and cell phones and the ubiquity of those technologies have complicated our ability to be human. There are others who comment on this as well. Brené Brown talks about this, where we have a young generation that has mistaken vulnerability and broadcast, right? Where you sit in your room by yourself, put your phone on record, and make a video of yourself crying because of the loss of a relationship, and then posting that on Instagram or Snapchat or YouTube or TikTok or whatever your media of choice is, and the hashtag is just being vulnerable, right? And there's nothing vulnerable about that. You were by yourself, broadcasting to the world, live or video, it doesn't matter. Do that exact same thing with the person you hurt. That is way more difficult. Don't leave a voice memo saying, hey, I'm really sorry, just taking accountability. Call them or go visit them and look them in the eye and say that exact same sentence that you just left a voice memo for. That's vulnerability. That's really hard and requires practice, and we avoid it because it's difficult. We avoid it because it's uncomfortable. We choose broadcast not because it's better, it's because it's easier, and then mistake the two. And so the reason to learn to be vulnerable is not for ourselves, it's for a service to others. And I talk about this all the time, which we've confused these things. And once again, going back to what we were talking about before, we've weirdly taken these very pro-social activities and made them selfish. And so for anyone who's ever practiced meditation, there are absolutely benefits to us, without a doubt. And those are important mental and physical health benefits of meditation and mindfulness, and we should practice those for sure. But there's also what I think is the primary reason, some would consider secondary reason, which is if you practice meditation, for example, you learn to focus on one thing, your mantra, a sound, whatever it is. You learn to, your breath, you don't think of nothing, you think of one thing, you focus on one thing, right? And if something interrupts that thing, you have a thought. Did I leave the washing machine on? You label it a thought and you push it out of your head and you say, I'll deal with it later. And that's the whole idea, is total focus and the ability to put your thoughts out of your head to stay focused on this one thing. Now think about when you're sitting listening with a friend who's going through a hard time. Are you listening or are you waiting for your turn to speak? Right? The whole meditation practice that you've been doing is now valuable in this moment, where you are focused entirely on what they're saying to you. Every distraction, every screech of a car tire outside, everybody who's talking around you, you don't hear any of it. You only hear what they're saying to you. You're entirely focused on what they're saying to you. And when you have your own thoughts of advice you'd like to give, or things you want to tell them, oh my God, me too, that happened to me as well, right? You say, nope, that's not important in this moment, and you put it out of your head and deal with it later. And at the end of that conversation, your friend will say, thank you, I feel heard. Or thank you for being there for me. Or thank you for holding space for me. Or thank you for listening. And those are all indications that congratulations, you've been present for another. And I think what gives our lives purpose is not to wake up every morning to learn meditation so that we can be present for ourselves, though that is valuable. What gives our lives purpose is to do these things for another. There's nothing wrong with doing things and enjoying the benefit of those things yourself, by all means. But the deep feeling sense of purpose and meaning to one's life or to one's work only comes when those things are for another. And in my view, primarily for another, where our benefit is secondary. You can't have equal. There's no such thing as equal. Because at one point, one of those things will have to be sacrificed for the other. And do you sacrifice your spouse's love so that you can stay in love? Or do you sacrifice your comfort? Do you sacrifice your girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse's comfort so that you can be better, or do you sacrifice your comfort so they can feel better? It's obvious. Well, it's the same here. It's the same analogy, which is I choose to sacrifice my happiness, my joy, my comfort, my Lamborghini in this moment, not forever, but in this moment, for you, my employee, for you, my friend, I will delay so that you can have. And that's where the joy and love of business, relationships, friendships come from. There's a great irony in all of this, which is to sacrifice for another really is the most beautiful thing we can ever do. I mean, that's kind of what love is. It's sacrificing for another. And all of these things, whether it's learning to be a better communicator, learning mindfulness and meditation, being in shape, if you can translate those things in for another, all of those things start to have a higher purpose. The concept of AI is not new. It's an algorithm, right? And our lives since the early days of the internet have been governed by algorithms.
Yes.
Right?
I'm a great believer that the world is made up of balance. And for anything good that happens to us, infinite games are defined as known and unknown players. You don't necessarily know who all the other players are.
But I like testing things in real life. Many of my ideas are from real life scenarios where it's not like practice. Okay, it's ready for the real world now.
The concept of AI is not new. It's an algorithm, right? And our lives since the early days of the internet have been governed by algorithms.
Yes.
Right? What's an algorithm? Let's start there.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about algorithms every day. It's in our vernacular, but what is it? An algorithm is very simply a set of instructions. Mathematical or computer code. It's a set of instructions. That's all it is, right? So a recipe is an algorithm. 2 eggs, cup of milk, some flour. What you get is that. And so, the algorithm, the set of instructions is, Lewis went on Amazon and bought this, show him that, right? That's all it is. It's a list of instructions to solve a problem or to generate some sort of result. And so there's been artificial intelligence around us for a long time. If you go back to the early days of, Ask Jeeves, which was pre-Google, right? Didn't work very well.
Right.
And you had to write in full sentences. And so Google was invented a different algorithm that worked a different way, that you could put in less information and you could get the thing that you're more likely to be looking for, right? The goal was always that you'd find what you're looking for on the first page. Remember back in the early days, you'd sometimes have to scroll a few pages, right? So they're constantly improving these lists of instructions and tell the computer what to do with a certain input. I think the thing that's new is the generative AI, right? Where the machine can sort of, it sounds like Star Trek. It's like it speaks in normal language that you don't have to type in Google. Google's a language. You type in the keywords you want. You don't have to speak in complete sentences. But now you talk to another human being, and it tells you what you want. But it's still based on existing information. The thing that scares me about AI is the thing that I think scares everybody about generative AI, and the speed at which this algorithm can work, and the speed at which it can invent things.
But is that something to be scared about or more excited about?
Both. The answer is both. And I think anybody who comes on one side or the other of the equation is missing the point. There's a cost for everything. And for all the benefits of anything in our lives, there's always a cost. You want to make a lot of money, if that's your drive, you want to get rich and become a millionaire, okay, there's a cost for the money you make. You're going to sacrifice relationships, you're going to sacrifice sleep, you're going to sacrifice your health, who knows what it is, right? But you're going to pay for that in some way, shape, or form. It's a balanced equation, right? So the more fantastic the benefits of any technology, the balanced equation has to be considered.
Interesting.
So is it worth all the benefits if it's going to cost this much, right? And we're looking at climate change now and industrialization, like all the benefits of industrialization. Was it worth the cost? I think some of us would have preferred to maybe scale back some of that and not deal with what we're dealing with now, right? So I think we have to do a cost analysis, which is, I want this, but at what cost? I want this, but at the cost of undermining a democracy? Oh, that seems like a steep cost for something to write a book for me,
Right.
Like, I'm not sure. And at least as it exists now, it's useless for original thoughts. So people ask me all the time, are you scared of it? I'm like, absolutely not scared of it at all. Because if you ask AI to write a book in the style of Simon Sinek, on any subject, it can only draw from what I've already written, but it can't give a new thought.
Doesn't bring new perspective.
There's no new ideas, right?
My life has changed a lot, actually. I'm a great believer that the world is made up of balance. And for anything good that happens to us, it comes at a cost, always. And I like to consider what that cost is. But when something bad happens to us, there's also opportunity or lessons or something. And I sort of made a practice out of always trying to keep the balance. So I don't take good for granted and bad, I always try and get something out of it. And COVID was such a shock to the system. The opportunity was huge. I mean, total reinvention if you wanted it. And for our business, it was total reinvention. But for me, it gave them an opportunity to sit and breathe. and I think many people in this room can relate, that we're on a hamster wheel for our careers. And we think that we're setting the speed of the hamster wheel by how fast we're running. And the hard lesson that I learned is I'm just running to keep up. And for a period of time, COVID stopped the wheel. And I got off. And then I got to look around and say, do I want to get back on that wheel, or is there something else I want to do? And so there was a ton of introspection. I've grown up a lot, to be honest. And I worked hard. I had that time to do it. And I also decided how I want to spend the rest of my life. I'm very, very, very proud of the work that I have done and the work that I do, and spreading a message and challenging traditional notions of how business works and how we can change that. But the question is like I'm proud of that, and it has its own momentum. Mm-hmm. And I'm a great believer in measuring success not by hitting absolutes, but by counting momentum. And that's for us individually as well as businesses. And then it's much easier to maintain momentum.
Infinite games are defined as known and unknown players. You don't necessarily know who all the other players are. The rules are changeable. You can play however you want. And the objective is to perpetuate the game, to stay in the game as long as possible. What I find so fascinating about this idea when I first learned about it is we are players in multiple infinite games every day of our lives. There's no such thing as being the winner in your marriage, There's no such thing as winning global politics, and there's definitely no such thing as winning business. Business is an infinite game. And yet, when we listen to the language of too many leaders, they talk about being number one, being the best, and beating their competition. Based on what? There's no agreed upon objectives, there's no agreed upon timeframes. And so what ends up happening is you have people building organizations and leading with a finite mindset, playing to win, in a game where there's no such thing as winning. And when we play with a finite mindset in an infinite game, there's a few very predictable and consistent outcomes, amongst which include the decline of trust, the decline of cooperation, the decline of innovation, all of which contribute to the eventual demise of the organization itself. And so what I wrote about is what it means to lead with an infinite mindset, because we teach leadership as if it were a finite game. People start business with the goal of winning or being number one, and that's a problem because that's impossible. So what I wrote about in the infinite game is leading with an infinite mindset.
And so I remember in the early days, when the only thing I could talk about was starting with why.
Yeah.
When I started to have more ideas and different ideas, and I would pitch to these prospective engagements, I'd like to talk about something new. They'd all say no because they wanted me to do the thing that they knew was good. They wouldn't let me try something new. And so I just arbitrarily picked one and basically didn't do as I was told and decided to do something new on the stage. And I think there's I'm not saying there's a one size fits all here. There's a risk tolerance, but I like testing things in real life. Many of my ideas are from real life scenarios where it's not like practice. Okay, it's ready for the real world now. There have been more than one occasion where I've walked out on stage and go, okay, they brought me in to talk about this, but I'm having some new ideas. Are you guys okay if I try talking about this? It might completely fail. Just wanted to get some, and like people, especially you pick your audiences, you pick a room full of entrepreneurs,
right?
They're fine with it. And then I would try new things. And I think what makes it work is very often when we do these things, we show up with a selfish disposition, right? I hope they like me. I hope they like my work. I hope they buy my book. I hope they, go to my website. I hope they follow me on social media.
Right.
And we act that way. We put a picture behind us on the PowerPoint, and it has all of our social media handles on it, and it has a phone number and a website and an email address.
Right.
And we say at the end, somebody asks a question, it's like, question whatever, and we reply, well, you'll have to read my book, or well, that's from my book, and it's like we put ourselves, and that's, people can tell And in those cases, we're not rooting for you. In fact, we're going to try and trip you up.
Right.
Because we can't help ourselves. It's entertaining.
Yes.
You know, you put yourself at the front, we'll have fun with that. And so I've learned early to show up with a giver's mentality, where I don't care if they like me. I don't care if they buy a book. I don't care if they follow me on social media or not. All I know is I have something that I think is really valuable, and I'm going to give it to you. I want to give it to you. And I believe, and I'm giving it to you with all of my gusto and all of my energy. And so like, I remember, people would apologize because they said there's going to be this size event and like only half the number of people showed up and they're apologizing. And I know a lot of speakers who would get angry. You promised me this size audience. And I was like, well, I just feel sorry for the people who didn't show up, because the people who did show up are going to get all of me.
Right.
I mean, I wake up every single morning to inspire people to do the things that inspire them. So together, each of us can change our world for the better. And I live my life with a very clear vision as well. I imagine a world, you said a little bit of it up front, I imagine a world in which the vast majority of people wake up every single morning inspired, feel safe wherever they are, and end the day fulfilled by the work that they do. And I've committed my career and my life to advancing towards that vision. When you say what do most people get wrong in leadership, I think leadership is a misunderstood skill set. First of all, it absolutely is a skill set. There's no such thing as a natural born leader. Even the leaders that appear to have natural capacity, I guarantee they learned it when they were younger. They had a mentor, a parent, a coach, a guardian, somebody that helped them learn these skills. Number one, leadership is nothing about being in charge. It's the awesome responsibility to see those around us rise. It's about taking care of those in our charge. The closest analogy I can give to being a great leader is like being a great parent. Yes, I know you don't get to pick your team sometimes, but you don't get to pick your children either. And yet you show up with love every day. And you work tirelessly to see that they will gain the skills and the confidence to do well and excel in their lives. And great leaders are doing exactly the same thing. And leadership is all about human skills. And leaders who become great leaders, it's because they study leadership. They're obsessed with it. They read books about it, they watch talks about it, they read articles about it, and when you go out with them, all they want to do is talk about it. They're obsessed with the concept. Just like parents. There's no such thing as an expert parent, but you read articles, you read books, you talk to other parents, and you solve problems along the way. We talk about hard skills and soft skills. I despise the term soft skills because there's nothing soft about them, number one. And number two, hard and soft are opposites. And these two things are not working against each other. Hard skills are clearly the skills you need to do your job. I wouldn't trust you to give me medical advice if you didn't go to medical school and pass some of the tests that they give you. Those are hard skills, right? I like human skills, not soft skills. And human skills are the skills you need to be a better human being. And human skills make you a better leader. They give you a better bedside manner. They make you a better team member and teammate, right? And we don't teach human skills. We just don't teach them. So a lot of people are bad team members or substandard team members or substandard leaders, not because they're bad people. They just have never been given the education. I would never expect you to know how to do surgery without training. How can I expect you to lead without training? It's a skill. And so we built the Optimism Company to fill that gap and teach human skills only. Things like how to listen. Things like how to have an effective confrontation. Like somebody screwed up badly, or you need to go up the chain of command. Your boss is an idiot. How do you tell your boss they're an idiot? In a way that they will hear the information rather than just be defensive, right? And it goes in every direction in an org chart. How to give and receive feedback. We all give feedback the way we like to receive it. Turns out not everybody likes to receive feedback the way we like to get it. Turns out. So these are some of the skills we're dedicated to teaching. And the amazing thing is, when you talk about improving lives, like you're devoted to helping people improve lives, turns out if you teach the skills at work in order to help them improve work, turns out once you have those skills, you have those skills. And you find that companies that do a good job of teaching human skills, the people who work at those companies tend to have better marriages, they tend to have better relationships with their kids because all those skills come home. If you get better at listening, guess what? You're better at listening to your spouse. If something goes wrong at home and you've learned how to give feedback or receive feedback, guess what? It works at home too. So when you talk about improving lives, this is what I'm talking about, the ripples of our work.
Who are teaching us values? Who are teaching us service? Who's teaching us
kindness and empathy. In leaderless times and lost times, we will follow things that make us feel good, right? Wealth makes us feel good. Conspicuous consumption makes us feel good because you get that hit of serotonin and dopamine. This is the reason why I've become really fascinated by the concept of friendship. I haven't written a book in many years, and so I've started writing again. And I'm writing a book with a friend, my friend Will Guidera, who wrote Unreasonable Hospitality. And we've decided to write about friendship. Because when you think about all of the problems that we're facing today, mental fitness, mental health, rising suicide, rising anxiety, depression, addiction, I mean, take your list, even people's obsession with longevity. And everybody's looking for a biohack for all those things. And there's one biohack that's better than all of the things that we're trying, which is friendship. People with close friendships are healthier, they live longer, but they have better coping mechanisms, which means they better deal with stress. And I'll give you an amazing thing. So there's a very famous experiment that was done, I think in the 60s. All of our sort of understanding of addiction is based on this study. It's basically they put a rat in a cage and they gave it plain water, or they gave it water laced with drugs. And it tasted both. It got addicted to the water laced with drugs and eventually drank that water until it died, right? And so this became our understanding of addiction. Many years later, not that long ago, another scientist said, hold on, there's a problem with this experiment. A rat, like a person, is a social animal. And you took this social animal and you put it by itself and then offered it drugs. So you created loneliness and then you offered the drug, right? If you want to make it a good experiment, you have to create the right context. So what it did, they created something called Rat Park, where basically what they did is they created a new cage filled with things to do and mazes and wheels and other rats, and they were social. And the rats tasted both waters, the one laced with morphine and the one that was just plain. They drank enough of the morphine-laced one to get addicted, and then they stopped. It diminishes how much they drank, and they only drank the plain water. So basically, when you have healthy relationships, we are less likely to become addicted. When we are lonely, we are more likely to create addiction, right? Friendship is the thing that actually protects us. And then if you look at, even if you do become addicted, right? Let's take the worst case scenario. So let's look at alcoholism, right? Alcoholism, we know that to beat alcoholism, you join AA. Community. And everybody talks about the importance of community and finding your community, right? But Alcoholics Anonymous knows that there's these 12 steps, and if you master 11 of the 12 steps, the disease is probably going to get you. But if you master the 12th step, the final step, you're more likely to overcome the disease. So what's the 12th step? The 12th step is to help another alcoholic, to become someone's sponsor. In other words, to become a friend. In other words, community, you find community. But then the final step of beating the disease is a friend, where you replace the community with a friend, and you have both. And we think community is the thing, but it's not enough. Yes, you can create belonging with community. And people, where we started talking about it, where people are latching onto these anti-establishment populist movements. It's giving them a sense of community. It's giving them a sense of shared purpose with a group of people, right? But it's also providing new social connections. One of the things we don't do is we are not good at making friends, and we're not good at looking after friends. There's an entire industry to help people like us become better leaders. I'm a part of it. I write books about it, right? There's an entire industry to help people be better parents. And if you're going to have a child, if you've got a child with problems, you read all the books about how to be a better parent. There are no books, or precious few books, to teach us, and there's no industry to teach us how to be a better friend. Like, are you a good friend? Are you a good friend to your friends? Are your friends good to you? Who do you call people when you are stuck and down? Or do you make TikTok videos by yourself? Which, and you get, literally, people who are depressed make TikTok videos by themselves. I don't know how many times they reshoot that either. To post it to get the validation for their feelings. But to call a friend and say the same thing you're struggling with is actually more difficult.
Why doesn't the industry exist? Because typically...
we take it for granted.
Yeah. So the demand isn't there for those kinds of things.
But that's the problem, which is I think the demand is there. We don't realize it, right? Like we know that our relationships fail and our marriages fail. So there's an entire industry to help us maintain better relationships. Well, friendships fail, and we think we have friends, yet we still struggle and feel lonely. If you have good friendship, you will not feel lonely. You may have moments of loneliness, and in those periods, you will pick up the phone and say to your friend, "I need you. I'm lonely." And your friends will be there. You will feel not alone, right? Or, and you and I have talked about this, about you will feel that someone will get in the mud with you. Mm. And I think the problem is we don't give intention to friendship. So think about it. And you and I are both guilty of this. In fact, I would argue that everybody's guilty of this, which is we've got plans booked with a friend. Let's call it a lunch. A work thing comes up. We call up the friend, I got a work thing. And the reason we keep bumping our friends is because they'll understand. They're our friends. So why aren't we prioritizing our friendships? Why aren't we saying to the work thing, I'm sorry, I've got a thing. If we had another meeting, we would say, sorry, I've got an appointment, I can't make it. So why don't we treat our friends with the same intentionality that we treat any other meeting? So one of the things that Will did for a friend that I thought was genius, brilliant, beautiful, Will Godera.
A finite game is defined as known players, fixed rules, and an agreed upon objective. Football, baseball, right? If there's a winner, necessarily there have to be losers, but more important, there's always a beginning, a middle, and an end. And then you have infinite games. Infinite games are defined as known and unknown players, which means you don't necessarily know who all the other players are, and new players can join whenever they want. The rules are changeable, which means every player can play however they want. And the objective is to stay in the game as long as possible, to perpetuate the game. We are players in infinite games every day of our lives, whether we know it or not. No one in here will ever win healthcare. No one will ever win education. No one will ever be declared the winner of your marriage. If you want to be number one in your marriage, good luck with that.
That's for sure.
You can be number two, but you can't be number one. And there's definitely no such thing as winning business. And yet when we listen to the language of so many people in business, it becomes very, very clear they don't know the game they're playing. They talk about being number one, or being the best, or beating their competition. Based on what? Based on what agreed upon metrics, timeframes, and objectives. And this is a problem, because when we play with a finite mindset in an infinite game, when we play to win in a game that has no finish line, there are some very predictable and consistent outcomes. The big ones are the decline of trust, the decline of cooperation, and the decline of innovation. Like when Circuit City went bankrupt, Best Buy didn't win anything, right? And so we have to play for the game that we're in. And if you're in business, to stay in business, versus if you want to just hit some target and get out of it and you don't actually care if the business does good work, then you have to play for the mindset for the game you're playing.